Yeah, thank you, Ajra and Carly. That was an eye-opener. And when I give speeches about modern-day slavery, I used to be discouraged because nobody had any questions. They were all staring at me in a blank stare of disbelief. This is new to a lot of people. And one of the ways we're going to fight it is with the 14 values used by the heroes of peace. And I discovered these starting about 15 years ago with the Tuskegee Airmen. You may have never heard of them. The Tuskegee Airmen are the first black fighter pilots in the United States Army Air Corps in 1941. The military in the United States was segregated. It was extremely prejudiced. There were no black pilots. There were no black mechanics. All blacks in the military at that time were meth cooks or road diggers. But President Roosevelt said that we're going to start a school to train black pilots, and you're going to train them at Tuskegee, Alabama. And the Southern congressmen and senators and generals didn't like this one bit, but had to do it because it was the president's order. But they decided to make this an experiment to fail. They were going to show that blacks could not fly aircraft. And they engineered the schools so no one could pass. They started them out on a demerit system. 3 demerits, you're kicked out. If you have dust under your bed, you get a demerit. If your sheets aren't tight enough, you get a demerit. If I don't like your attitude, you get a demerit. They gave them airplanes that were broken and couldn't fly, and then filed reports that they're incapable and can't fly aircraft. They were underfunded. They had limited rights. They had limited dignity in the environment they were living in. It would be like a student here going to class, told that you must pass this class. The teacher tells you to be there at 8 o'clock. The class is over at 8 o'clock. It doesn't start. The teacher tells you to buy the wrong textbook, and when you come to class, all the lights are out. How can you possibly pass? The Tuskegee Airmen did. They succeeded beyond all wildest expectations and broke records still unmatched today. Well, how did they do this? If I could learn how they did this, I could teach it for solving other problems. Most of them today are in their 90s. 3 or 4 more years will be the end of an era. I spent 5 to 10 years teaching about the Tuskegee Airmen and doing research projects with my students as to what methodology, what thoughts, what values were going through their heads when they were put in these impossible situations. And we came up with the 14 values that I mentioned earlier this evening. After the Tuskegee Airmen, we were a little suspicious. How could this group of remarkable people from all over the United States end up with the same values? So we started investigating other world heroes of peace. Eleanor Roosevelt, Mandela, Desmond Tutu, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, William Wilberforce. We only investigated them when they were at their best. Everybody has a bad day. When they were magnificent, performing at their best, what were their values that they used to base their decisions? We found the same 14. I then went into the ghettos of South Africa, into the jungle villages of Nicaragua, looking for poor heroes. And we found them. And they followed the same 14 values. Children, women, men, any religion, any culture. This is remarkable stuff. Let me talk to you about a little boy named Ryan. He's 6 years old. He's in kindergarten, and the teacher comes to him and says, "Class, in Uganda, there are villages where the people are dying because they don't have water. We need a water well. Maybe this little kindergarten class can go home and vacuum rugs and rake leaves and maybe earn $70. Well, Ryan thought the water well cost $70. So he went home to his mother. He's a Canadian, by the way. He went home to his mother and said, "I have to earn $70 to put in a water well in Uganda." And he vacuumed rugs and washed dishes and washed cars and shoveled snow and raked leaves for 9 months. He finally earned $70. And he and his mother now went to the kindergarten teacher. He was now in the first grade. He went to his kindergarten teacher and with a great deal of pride took these $70 and held them up to her and said, "Now you can put a well in Uganda and save these children." And the teacher looked down at him and said, "Oh, Ryan, water wells cost thousands of dollars." And Ryan looked up at her and thought for a minute and then said, "I better get busy." He went to the first grade of every single classroom in the entire city school system and told kids to vacuum rugs and rake leaves and wash cars. And he united all the schools in the city, and within 2-3 years had the money, and he sent it over to Uganda and they put in the water well. But now he wanted to see it. He had to raise money for tickets for his mother and himself to Africa. So he went to the newspaper and told them about the water well and all about the kids and how much money was raised. And in about 6 months, he had enough money for his mother and himself to go to Uganda. And the villagers in this little burg heard he was coming, and he had a dirt road leading into where the grass huts were. And all of the villagers lined the road for over a mile, the only road going in here. And Ryan came in with his mother, and all the villagers clapping on both sides of the road, all the way in for the mile. You can see that. It was filmed. To go out to the internet, type in Ryan's Well, and look at the video of this small child walking into that village. He's 18 now. He has installed 360 water wells in 54 different countries. What are you doing this weekend? I wanted to talk to you about some of these values. I keep mentioning them. Here are the values, or some of them. We can't go over all of them. That these heroes of peace, only heroes of peace. They investigated no one who killed more of the enemy than the enemy killed of them. It had to be peace. How did they govern their behavior during their negotiations? Govern yourself by never allowing another's behavior to negatively influence your conduct. Your actions are always your responsibility. They are never another's fault. Determine your behavior from the values you want to have, from the kind of person you want to be. Never from how others behave toward you. Obstacles. Realize that obstacles are not barriers to your goals, but opportunities for growth and challenges to enrich your self-confidence by mastering new skills. Courage. Honor and respect fear. For when you feel fear, that is the only opportunity you will ever have to show courage. Perseverance, never give up. Most perceived failures are not failures at all, but instead successfully completed stepping stones toward a goal. The only time you can fail is if you quit. While engaging your adversaries, always maintain their dignity. This is the only road to lasting peace. And honor all commitments and obligations to everyone. Your pledge, your trust should be as meaningful to a king as to a beggar. For the value of the commitment is determined from its source, you, not to whom it is directed. Compassion gives simply to increase the amount of goodness in the world, often without recognition or reward. Give more to others than you receive in return, and carefully sustain this inequity as a distinctive characteristic of your leadership. If you go out to my website, modelingfutureheroes.com, you'll see the heroes that I use and that we're investigating because of their remarkable, peaceful problem-solving skills. Kevin Bales is among them. He has probably done more good for the prevention of slavery and the recovery of captured slaves than anyone else in the world. Janetta Sagan is another hero I want to briefly mention. She watched her she watched her siblings die. She watched her parents be killed by the Nazis. And then she was brutally raped and beaten and starved to death over a period of months until she almost died herself. With the help of a sympathetic Nazi guard, she escaped. You would think after that you would avoid tyrants. But not her. The 4'11" Janetta Sagan spent the rest of her life going to dictators, negotiating the release of political prisoners. Thousands of prisoners have been released in her name. And she started the United States branch of Amnesty International. The reason I mention her is she has a saying that is all-capturing. Indifference in the face of injustice is complicity with the oppressor. That kind of makes us responsible for everything, doesn't it? Knowing that when you successfully fight human trafficking, you will not curse the obstacles before you, but rather welcome them as opportunities for new knowledge and the development of new skills. You will not run from or avoid fear, for you know that will be the only opportunity you will ever have to show courage. You will promote positive change in others, never by criticism, but only from your repeated examples of excellence. And you will never allow the negative conduct of another to influence your behavior or your choices. You will always protect the dignity of your adversaries, knowing this is the only road to lasting peace. So you're here now, you know about human trafficking. Remember, indifference in the face of injustice is complicity with the oppressor. So arm yourselves with the weapons of excellence and endurance, as these world heroes of peace have done, and carry their legacy forward for the betterment of